What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bridging to Geekdom's Free Talk. I'm your host, Robert Slavinsky. And what's going on? So the other day, had some upsetting news. A legend within the film industry passed away. I know you've all heard the news of Sean Connery's passing, and I just wanted to take a moment to just talk about him. Remember him. The importance that he played on me in my childhood is pretty astronomical if I really think about it. And Colton and I used to do the remembrances of actors who passed when we were doing the show on a regular basis back at my old apartment between 2016, 17, 18, that kind of thing. And ever since we got away from doing the podcast together as often, we haven't done that as much. So I kind of wanted to talk about, just remembering Sean Connery. For me, my first memory of Sean was watching Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Now, you have to keep in mind, I was born in 1986. The Indiana Jones craze was already in the midst. People were, they loved the first two films that were made, and I was just a baby. 1989, The Last Crusade comes out. I'm still only a few years old. I have no idea. I don't know anything about it. By 1995, 1996, the Lucasfilm craze was building up in my household, thanks to me. My mother was buying the Star Wars trilogy on VHS at the time, and it just so happens that she bought Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Well, I watched that a few times. I never really enjoyed the Temple of Doom. And because of me not enjoying that, I discovered that there were other Indiana Jones films. And naturally, I jumped on and was like, well, I got to watch them. I didn't hate Temple of Doom. I just, I felt that there could be better. I was a big Harrison Ford fan, so I felt there had to be better. So I make my way, I want to say it was probably 95, 96, somewhere around there, to watching Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And as I said, I was a huge Harrison Ford fan at that time. As a 9, 10-year-old, he was probably the most recognizable actor in my eyes, thanks to him playing Han Solo and Indiana Jones. And I was kind of like, okay, so let's see how these Indiana Jones films are. Last Crusade, I'm watching it, and I get my first real feel and taste of Sean Connery, going toe-to-toe with, like I said, in my eyes, was probably the biggest movie star for a 9 or 10-year-old at the time in Hollywood. And Sean Connery was going toe-to-toe with him. It was absolutely phenomenal. I loved every single bit of that movie. It was because of what Sean brought to the story, to the lore, that really pushed The Last Crusade just that much further and made it that much more exciting. It was around that same time where I kind of dove into the James Bond run. And it wasn't because of me seeing Sean Connery on Indiana Jones. Actually, thanks to Pierce Brosnan and the GoldenEye film, I kind of then fell into the whole James Bond 007 aspect of film. And I can't remember what channel it was on. Maybe it was like American Movie Classics, or I don't know. It was some channel on cable that one summer actually for a few summers they did this. They would play the James Bond movies back to back to back to back to back to back to back. They would just play them and play them and play them. So I started watching James Bond, and we had a Hollywood Video up the road from us, and eventually, nice little fun fact, I actually ended up working at that Hollywood Video when I was at the right age. But I got in big time with the James Bond movies. They were kind of between James Bond, Indiana Jones, and Star Wars. those are the films that really shaped my childhood when it came to my film tastes for quite some time. And, you know, watching those early Bond films with Sean Connery, that's really where I was like, holy crap, this Sean Connery, man, like he's a ladies' man, he's charming, he's again, remember at the time I was a huge Harrison Ford fan. So he was Harrison Ford before Harrison Ford was Harrison Ford. So for me, I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. Okay, Sean Connery, great. Then there was The Rock. The Rock came out with Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery, and let me tell you, as a young boy, 10, 11 years old, watching a movie like, maybe I was a little older than that, watching a movie like The Rock, that thing was fantastic. And I love the thought and the idea that Sean Connery was just playing James Bond in that movie. It's really interesting. I encourage you, if you guys haven't heard this theory, find some videos on YouTube, go down that rabbit hole because it's really intriguing and quite possibly the mindset that Connery was in when he was playing it. I love it. I really do. I love that idea and that theory when it comes to The Rock. The thing that I really, really loved, when we go back to the Indiana Jones thing, is when you think about what George Lucas was doing, George Lucas was attempting to make a James Bond film without James Bond when it came to Raiders of the Lost Ark. And by the time he got to his third film, he brought in Sean Connery, probably the most famous to that point of all the James Bonds, and he was able to put him in that franchise. I think that's just fantastic. And Sean Connery was, and I get it, a lot of people, you take a look and see some of the things that he said in his lifetime. He is of an old school mindset. You got to take a look where he grew up, where he lived. But he was just one of the coolest guys in Hollywood, I think. I take a look at what I've watched of his, how many times I've watched movies with him in it. You don't think about that. You never really think about, okay, yeah, I love this movie. Like The Rock, I've seen that easily 50 to 60 times in my lifetime. Not thinking I'm watching it because of Sean Connery or Nick Cage or really the plethora of actors that are in that movie. But I'm sitting there thinking, like, I'm watching it because it's just a damn good film. But then you see, it's because it's escalated by what these characters, these actors are doing with these characters in the movie. I really wish that Sean Connery would have been able to return to Indiana Jones. I think that would have been really nice, especially given the Crystal Skull, which, another fun fact, I actually think is better than Temple of Doom. But probably just lost all my credibility here for anything. I apologize. But getting back around to it, I really think that Sean Connery is a man that's going to go down in history as one of the greatest movie stars of all time. And he was, in my eyes, one of those. He was at 9, 10 years old, one of the first true movie stars that I ever started to recognize. It's just amazing what that man was able to do. His history, his story is very interesting. And he is going to be missed. He retired in the early 2000s. I believe his last film was League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which was not a high note for him. It wasn't really a high note for anybody that was involved in that movie. But sometimes that's the way it works. And it's unfortunate. He didn't put any less effort into that film. You can see he was having a good time. That's the kind of guy that it appeared for him to be. And by all accounts, when you see what Harrison Ford said, George Lucas, Michael Bay, and many others who have worked with him that have come out and talked about, he was somebody who loved the art of acting. And that absolutely showed across every movie that you ever watched with him in it. I will forever be indebted to Sean for what he did for me as a child. Countless hours, countless nights of watching movies with him in it. Uh, it was just, there's nothing else but to say thank you, Sean. And, you will be missed. Rest in peace. I hope that if you are not a Sean Connery fan, because again, I'm not a fan, but just somebody is, I encourage you all to go and look into his library of films. And, when it comes to me, I love his James Bonds. Dr. No, fantastic, fantastic. Goldfinger, amazing, amazing Bond films. When he left the role of Bond and he didn't want to be typecast, he eventually did come back in a roundabout way in Never Say Never Again, which technically isn't part of the true Bond 007 film saga, but there really is no rhyme or reason to those Bond movies anyway. But I do encourage you, if you're someone who is younger, who has not checked out Sean Connery, or is not even really sure who he is, I really think, Indiana Jones and all those films are timeless classics. You gotta watch those movies. Get to The Last Crusade, and you just see the amazingness that he brings to that film. With that, you got The Rock, which is just a timeless action classic. That is, people love to make fun of Michael Bay, his explosions, his ridiculousness, like how all of his movies are pretty much the same. Yeah, not wrong. But The Rock is a damn good movie, and it's a movie that earns or deserves respect and has earned my respect, and I think everybody needs to check that out. But yeah, man, Sean Connery, you're gonna be missed. I always held out hope that you would return for one more role at some point in time down the line. It seems like that's not going to be possible anymore. It's just really unfortunate to see some of these actors. I mean, they were old when I was a kid. It's going to happen at some point, but they do play a role and an impact. If you're a film fan, if you're someone who truly enjoys watching movies, these actors from the 90s, from the 80s, they don't got much time left, and it's a real shame. Don't take what we've gotten from them for granted. Celebrate their lives. Celebrate what they have given us. So, Sean, thank you for everything. May you rest in peace. And that's about it, guys. I just wanted to get some thoughts out in regards to Sean Connery, how he affected my life when it came to film. He was a big part of my childhood. And countless nights of enjoyment because of what he brought to Bond, to Indiana Jones, all those other movies. All right, guys, I will talk to all of you later.